Sunday School leaders, it's that time of the week again. It's been a very busy week here at First Baptist Whitehall. As you can see behind me, there's a lot of decoration that has started as we're getting ready for Vacation Bible School to start this Sunday evening. So when you come into your classroom, depending on where your classroom is, there may or may not be some decoration to get ready for Vacation Bible School, but it should not affect your teaching or your classroom any this coming Sunday. This Sunday we're continuing in our study on Joshua, looking at Be Strong and Courageous, Everyday Leadership from Joshua. And we are in session 4, and it's called Move Beyond Failure, and it's out of Joshua chapter 7 and chapter 8. As leaders we deal with failure. Either that's our own failure, or it can be the failure of people who work with us or for us, and somehow we have to deal with that. Things just can't come to a crashing halt. We have to somehow get through that and go on and learn from those mistakes. In today's lesson, we see Joshua had to deal with the failure of his entire army, and it was due to one man and one man's sin, and that was Achan. And as you read your lesson, you'll see exactly what happened there. There's a lot of great information in your leader's guide about the topic, about getting through failure. But as I read through the lesson, I tried to ask myself, what's a question that might come up that's not covered in the lesson material? And as I looked at this, a question that I kind of have floating in the back of my mind, and I'm sure other people will as well, is why was God so harsh on Achan? Why did he have to be taken out and killed? And so I'm going to attempt to answer that question because it may or may not come up in your class. Now, I went to a website called gotquestions.org, and there's usually a lot of good information there, and that's where a lot of this information comes from. Now, as we think back to last week's lesson on the Battle of Jericho, God gave some specific instructions, and we see that in chapter 6, verses 17 through 19. It says, "The city and all that are in it are to be devoted to the Lord. Only Rahab the prostitute and all those who are with her in her house shall be spared, because she hid the spies we sent. But keep away from the devoted things, so that you will not bring about your own destruction by taking any of them. Otherwise you will make the camp of Israel liable to destruction and bring trouble on it. All the silver and gold and the articles of bronze and iron are sacred to the Lord and must go into his treasury." So as we look at Joshua chapter 7, we see that all of the nation of Israel obeyed except for Achan. And then we see at the end of chapter 7 what he actually took. He took a gold bar and some silver and a robe. It doesn't sound like an awful lot, but we see that the judgment on Achan was that he and all his family were taken out and stoned and burned, and then rocks put on top of Achan as a kind of like a memorial, as a reminder of what happened. And so that just brings up the question, why did God judge the sin of Achan so severely? So I've got 3 different points I'd like to share with you that might help explain this. The first is that Achan's sin affected the whole country of Israel, the whole nation of Israel. When one member of the nation broke the covenant, the entire nation's relationship with God was damaged. And we see that in chapter 7, verse 1. Very similar to that is Adam and Eve. When they sinned, it trickled down. It carried down to future generations and to all mankind. The second point is that Achan's sin cost Israel the battle at Ai. And not only did it cost the battle of Ai, but 36 Israelites, 36 men lost their lives in that battle. And so an important point to remember is that sin always affects more than you think. It always affects more people than you think. It always affects more than just yourself. And the third point, which to me is probably the most important, is that Achan actually stole from God. These items that he took were actually to be put into the treasury. But he saw those, wanted them for himself, and he took them. So Achan actually took from the treasury that God had set aside. That still leads to the question, what about Achan's family? Why? It's almost like overkill to go to that extreme. And to be honest, the Bible really doesn't give us exact reasons for destroying Achan's entire family. It could be that they aided him in this. We really just don't know. All to say, it's more than God just lashing out in a fit of anger. There were actually some reasons behind this. So that's just a little tidbit. Hopefully that'll come in handy. And like I said, somebody may or may not bring up that point, but it's always good to be prepared for those questions that may arise. You don't want to catch you off guard. So continue in your study in Joshua. I hope you have a great class Sunday, and remember to pray for your class, and I hope to see you Sunday. Bye.